Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030.
Choice Hotels gets you more for your money so you can maximize any road trip. Like these road trippers making waffles and eating fresh fruit in their natural habitat. The breakfast area at a Comfort Inn. I just love seeing a vacation maximized in the wild. Check into more. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Atheists, agnostics, long-haired weirdos, short-haired weirdos, vandals, hooligans.
The government, hug the government, love the government, hug the government, love the government.
Welcome to The Politics Guys, a place for bipartisan, rational, and civil debate on American politics and policy. I'm Trey Orndorff, a political scientist at Oklahoma Christian University, and I'm joined by a fellow political scientist, Justin Holmes, from the University of Northern Iowa, for this supporters-exclusive midweek show. Justin, welcome to the bonus show.
It's good to be here. That's a lot of political science for your money.
It is, right? Like, I mean, I think for a lot of people, that's probably more money and too much political science. I don't know.
Normally, people are paying tuition to get this brilliance.
You know, as a matter of fact, I was doing some math. That's true. If you think about it, if you really wanted to get the two of us, because I don't know about your school, but if you want to come to OC, I mean, it's not nothing. We're giving, this is like pennies on the dollar is what it is, basically.
It's a bargain. It'd be a bargain at twice the price.
Yeah, it really would be. So, as a matter of fact, if you aren't a supporter already, keep in mind, you're going to get cut off here in just a few minutes, but you could prevent that by becoming a supporter of the show. And it really is true. Students, hundreds of students every year pay lots of money to come hang out with me and Justin. Well, more than hundreds, as a matter of fact. I was going to say, man, I've got, because I teach all the gen eds, thousands of students pay. That is true, because I teach all the general education classes here at OC. But anyway, so this is not a promotion for Oklahoma Christian. Instead, it is our first ever bonus show together, Justin. We had some things that we didn't get to in the main show, I think in part because we were a little infatuated with the slap fight between Elon Musk and President Donald Trump. Yeah, I don't know. It's just fun. It's fun.
It's like a Taylor Swift kind of thing. Yeah.
It's a feud. It's true. It's true.
It is.
But there were, in fact, some pretty important court cases that didn't get a lot of attention, maybe an interesting book coming up. And I thought what we might start with is a case that came pretty late last week, Justin, and that was Smith & Wesson versus Estados Unidos Mexicanos, i.e. Mexico. And the United States Supreme Court ruled unanimously against Mexico in this case. It was one that Ken and I had kind of brought up a few weeks ago as one that we thought would be interesting. What this is all about, what the case of Smith & Wesson is the Mexican government had a lawsuit against a number of firearm companies that got consolidated into Smith & Wesson. And specifically, they were alleging that these companies had contributed to the illegal trafficking of firearms to Mexican drug cartels and therefore exasperating gun violence in Mexico. And the court looked primarily to the 2005 Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act, or the PLCAA, if you're looking at it in the news, which I'm going to have a slight aside here, Justin. One of the things that bothers me about contemporary news is the extent to which they do not explain laws. I can't tell you how many write-ups of this just kept talking about the PLCAA, and I'm like, what person?
Because I had to go into the nerdy weeds to get more details.
What person is going to know that? And the other one is an age in which you can have hyperlinks. It shocked me. I actually did a mini study. For the two cases that we're taking a look at for this bonus show, no outlet that I looked at, and I looked at every major outlet, news and otherwise, actually had a link to the opinions that are publicly available in PDF on the court's website. Like what? Anyway, so there's
like
my
absolute bare minimum. web design, but there you go.
Well, we can't have anybody clicking on a hyperlink. That'd make the web so terrible. So anyway, that aside, that is the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. What it did and does specifically was it was a way to shield gun manufacturers from certain kinds of liabilities as a result of crimes committed with their products, unless they knowingly violate specific laws related to the sale or marketing of firearms. And what makes that unique for those of you who may not say, okay, well, why do we do that? And the answer is that in general speaking, if your product is used in systematically harmful ways, you as a company can be held liable under general U.S. federal law. However, in 2005, the PLCAA basically was here to say, and again, you may agree or disagree with it, but the underlying idea is to say, well, weapons by their very nature are designed to harm things, and ergo, if you could use the standard protections in these kinds of lawsuits, you could effectively civilly end people's ability to own weapons using the standard kinds of liability standards. Now, be that as it may, in this particular instance, this is a unanimous opinion. Ken was not expecting that, so I really wanted to needle him a little bit about that. But be that as it may, as a matter of fact, Justice Kagan was the justice who authored the majority opinion, and she emphasized that Mexico's claims did not meet the stringent criteria required to overcome those additional liability protections in the PLCAA. And the court also found that Mexico failed to plausibly allege that the gun manufacturers knowingly violated federal state laws during the governing and the marketing of their firearms so that it would be used to cause injuries in Mexico. And there's really two main elements to our opinion. One was that aiding and abetting liability, did not find that to occur. And they also saw that the conduct there was not the proximate cause of the harm alleged by Mexico. In effect, one of the problems with this lawsuit, even from my point of view, and this is one of the things that Kagan brought up, was it's not primarily about the weapons. It's primarily about the failure of Mexico to deal with cartels and drug cartels, et cetera. And so it's too far of a cause, or what's called a proximate cause. And she really underscored the importance of the PLCAA and kind of ended on this. Look, and hey, I don't necessarily agree with it, but this is in fact the law. But this does, Justin, mark a pretty significant moment in the debate over gun manufacturing liability. Because again, I mean, this is something Ken thought there'd be a little bit of space here. He really thought that the liberal justices might take this chance to pare back or at least dissent in some ways. But instead, we have a unanimous opinion. Not surprisingly, the Mexican government has expressed disappointment, and it says it's going to take up other legal avenues, but there really are no other legal avenues that will have any true effect. So, Justin, what are your thoughts on this maybe slightly surprising unanimous decision?
I was a little surprised that it was unanimous, especially kind of given that the appellate court, this had been dismissed and then the appellate court reinstated it, arguing that, this at least conceivably rises to the level of aiding and abetting in terms of, culpability. And I suppose it's useful in the sense that it does try to hash out what that looks like. Exactly. This is that part where, I think where I couldn't be a lawyer because there are so many things that are, they have a legal standard that then is so squishy, I think, in a lot of ways. And this feels like one of them where, I mean, honestly, an appellate court and the Supreme Court can look at that and say, well, we don't think this fits the definition of aiding and abetting in the way that or we do think it does, because you can't, there's a lot of interpretation that goes on there. I am inclined to think that probably, kind of like my statement in the regular show this week, falls under the legal but maybe not a great decision, kind of thing. I'm inclined to think that, given the law, I mean, the threshold is pretty darn high, for suing a gun manufacturer. And I get that
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply. This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
The liability is going to be different there, because you're absolutely right. I mean, the purpose of a gun is killing, for the most part. So,
well, yeah, for sure.
Leonard Skinner taught us that. So, if it's going to be different than a car, or something like that, where
a lot of people are killed by cars, but their primary purpose is
isn't killing people, So, whereas the primary historical purpose is killing stuff, with guns, whether it's people or critters, and so I get the need for a law like that. I will say there is a sense here that I get that they're kind of insulating themselves through the fact that it goes through dealers, and I mean maybe that's enough. They are. It would be clear, I think, under the law that if they were directly selling guns to cartels, that would be a whole nother story. But essentially, they're selling guns to an intermediary, and some of those intermediaries are not very good about making sure that these guns are being sold in inappropriate ways. So, I mean, I think legally that is sort of, that is a shield. I do wonder, I mean, on some level, I think they have to know, that some of this is going on. But I guess I kind of agree that, in terms of proximate cause, we're a couple steps, we're a couple people removed, and so that's an issue. I mean, one thing that this brings up for me is that I think one area that kind of American gun law, and frankly the gun control debate, really doesn't go, and that I think is central to this, is this notion of kind of straw buyers and reselling. So. What's happening here essentially is that, Smith & Wesson sells the guns legally to a dealer. The dealer sells it to somebody that can pass a background check, but then, after that, the guns are in the wind. And, this is something, clearly it's a Mexico problem. It's also, frankly, our domestic problem, as well. If you look at kind of where guns come from, we have pretty robust system of background checks and things like that. But guns that end up being used in crimes, largely are through these straw buyers and, black market and things like that. And it's always struck me that this would be both a politically reasonably actionable and I feel like enforcement perhaps as well. This would be a pretty easy way to cut back on gun violence that most people could get behind, and yet we don't. And that seems central here. It's not that the dealers are selling to cartels, it's that they're probably winking and nod selling to, intermediaries. I do wonder, actually, if you mentioned recourse, this becomes a much heavier lift, but, could Mexico sue specific gun dealers, as facilitating straw buying? And that might actually be something that has a little more oomph, but doesn't do a whole lot for them because, they're not going to have the resources to, you're not going to get much money out of them. And you shut down one dealer and another pops up.
Well,
but
I think the other problem, though, here is that I was always surprised. I'm curious about your take on this, too. I was surprised by the amount of, and again, this is our first time together. I'm on the right side I don't mean that in the correct. I'm on the politically conservative side of the Second Amendment kind of issues. Sorry, I didn't mean right in the sense I'm correct, although I probably think I am correct, but that's not what I was getting at. But it seemed weird to me from the outset that this case just does not seem to be a sympathetic one. Vox, for example, was really just kind of lamenting it, and some other left wing channels were really
I read the Vox thing yesterday too.
Yeah, and I just keep thinking like
this that I did, which
but I just keep thinking
legal, but kind of sad.
Well, but I guess my question though is, it just feels to me though, in the sense of like, this does not seem to be the case to take up arms in part because when you take a look at the actual filing of Mexico, they're effectively saying that all of their domestic problems kind of come back to American arms dealers. And even so, whatever extent we might be on or not be on board with the facts of that, it seems like an overstated case for a state to suggest that its failedness at its stateness is primarily due to a couple of countries or a couple of companies. And it doesn't feel like the right kind of case that if you want to make policy changes in the United States was the one that I'd want to, stake my time in, or even file amicus curiae briefs with, which seemed unusual to me. But sure. I don't know if you had thoughts about that as well, kind of as the pragmatic on the policy side.
Yeah, as the pragmatic. I mean, so throwing out, kind of personal background. I'm actually a gun owner who is supportive of a fair amount of gun control, is kind of where my politics come down.
Okay, well, that's interesting, since this is the first time that
actually shocked Jay when we were having a conversation once, and I think it was me, Jay, and Mike, and I was the only one that had guns.
Well, I do too. I am also willing for a level of control. I don't know. Again, we haven't had a chance to ever talk about that. But it's always an interesting one because it's true, because you might have been a little shocked. I was the first time. You would think of Jay as being a gun owner, but he's not.
No, he's not at all. He was. I think literally, if we'd had video, I think his jaw might have dropped.
Justin.
Justin. I believe my response was, "Do you have any idea how hard it is to stab a deer?" I think was my justification.
But I do actually, because I know guys who try to use bows.
I did that exactly once, and I saw deers in rifle range, more or less. But that was that.
I am so sorry. I have gotten you way far afield. My apologies. Bring us back.
Way far afield. But
as a matter of fact, before I bring us back, though, it dawns on me we have just hit the point here, Justin, where we have come to the end of the ad-supported preview for those of us who are not supporters of the show. So if you want to listen to the rest of this, if you want to listen to me and Justin get back on topic here with the case, you're going to actually have to become a supporter of the show, and it only takes a few minutes. All you got to do, scroll down there, take a look at the show notes, and you're going to see the ways to support the show. There's all different kinds of entry points for the show and all different kinds of things you get, not just this show, but you get the main show without ads. You have the ability to get on the Discord. We got a lot of really cool stuff. I can't even run through all of it. So again, head down to their show notes, click, take a look at it, and for almost nothing, and we were teasing a little bit, but it really is true, to get the combined experience and time of Justin and myself, you would have to pony up a lot of money to come to our schools, and so we would love to have you for almost nothing be a part of the Politics Guys family. So head there, do that now, get the rest of this show, or head to politicsguys.com/support, and you can also see all of the different levels of support there as well. You can also always email us at mail@politicsguys.com. If you are in a financial situation where you can't support the show, but you'd like to listen to the rest of it, we do have arrangements that can be made. Just reach out to us at mail@politicsguys.com, and I know that we can get you set up there. It's also always helpful if you'll rate, subscribe, or review. We need those algorithms. Please do that. And I'll finish, as I always do, by giving a special thanks and shout out to our executive producers, who are just absolutely amazing, both in terms of their support and the feedback that they give us for this show. I look at that carefully. I appreciate this to all of you. The executive producers of the Politics Guys are Wilmer Marino, Daniel Toe, Ryan Beasley, Don Oglesby, Derek Schmidt, Dakota Heath, Jason Chrysler, Dave Dean, Kathy Anderson, and Jeremy Larson. We'll be back with a new full episode this weekend.
This podcast is part of the Democracy Group,